Captain Day stood in the briefing room of the starship Resilience, watching the alien delegation file through the door. This was supposed to be a simple day. The Galactic Council required all member species to allow inspections of their military training programs. It was a standard procedure, nothing more. Day had prepared all the documents and training videos. Everything was ready. The delegation consisted of 3 different alien species. First came Quaros, a Veloxian who looked like a walking crystal sculpture. His body reflected light in strange ways, creating rainbow patterns on the walls. Behind him floated Thesic, a Nethmir who existed as a cloud of gas contained in a special suit. The suit made soft humming sounds as it moved. Last was Click 17, a Creatal who resembled a giant mantis with too many eyes. Day bowed respectfully. "Welcome aboard the Resilience. I'm Captain Day, and I'll be showing you our training protocols today." Quaros's translator device crackled to life. His voice sounded like wind chimes. "We appreciate your cooperation, Captain. The Council values transparency among all member species." Day smiled and activated the large display screen. "Of course. Let me start with our basic training program. All human recruits begin their military service with a 6-month program on designated training worlds." He pulled up a star chart, showing several planets marked in blue. "These are our primary training facilities." The aliens leaned forward, studying the display with their various sensory organs. Thesic's gas cloud shifted colors slightly, which Day had learned meant curiosity. Click 17's mandibles clicked together rapidly. Quaros spoke first. "Captain, there appears to be an error in your display. These planets are marked with Class 12 designations." "That's correct," Day said, nodding. A long silence filled the room. "I don't understand," Quaros said slowly. "Class 12 worlds are Death World classifications. They're unsuitable for any known sapient life." Day checked his display, confused. "Yes, that's why they're good for training. They're challenging but not impossible." Thesic's entire form turned bright red, which Day knew meant alarm. "Captain, are you saying humans train their soldiers on Death Worlds?" "Yes, is there a problem?" All 3 aliens began speaking at once. Their translator devices struggled to keep up. Day heard fragments of shocked exclamations. Words like impossible and fatal and immediate death bounced around the room. Day held up his hands. "Please, one at a time. I don't understand the concern." Quaros's crystalline form was pulsing with rapid light patterns. His species showed stress this way. "Captain Day, a Class 12 Death World would kill a Veloxian within 3 hours. The gravity alone would shatter my body structure. The atmosphere would poison me. The radiation levels would cause cascade failure in my cellular matrix. The same for Nethmir," Thesic added, his gas cloud now swirling frantically. "We would ignite in those oxygen concentrations. The temperature variations would disperse our cohesion." Click 17's translator produced rapid clicking sounds. Creatal would die even faster. "The microorganisms alone would consume us from the inside. The predators would be unnecessary." Day felt a cold feeling in his stomach. He was beginning to understand there was a terrible misunderstanding somewhere. "But these are just our basic training worlds. We don't send anyone to actually dangerous planets unless they're in special forces." The alien stared at him in horror. "Your basic training occurs on worlds that would instantly kill us," Quaros said quietly. "What do you consider dangerous?" Day decided to show them rather than explain. He pulled up training footage from the current class on Australia Secundus. The video showed a group of young recruits barely 19 years old, running through a dense jungle environment. The aliens watched in silence. The environmental data displayed at the bottom of the screen told the story. Gravity 1.3 times galactic standard. Temperature 42 degrees Celsius in direct sunlight. Atmospheric oxygen 24%. Radiation elevated. Native life forms. Multiple hostile species cataloged. In the video, a young woman named Hana was leading her squad through an obstacle course. She was sweating heavily but smiling, laughing at something another recruit said. They climbed over walls, crawled through mud, and swam across a river filled with creatures that Day knew could strip flesh from bone. "Stop," Quaros said weakly. "Please stop the video." Day paused it. On the screen, Hana was frozen mid-jump, leaping across a gap between 2 platforms. "That human," Click 17 said, pointing with one of his limbs. "She's not wearing environmental protection." "None of them are," Day confirmed. "It's a basic training exercise." Protective gear comes later in advanced courses. Thessic's form had turned a color Day had never seen before, something between purple and gray. "Captain, I need to sit down." "You're floating," Day pointed out, concerned. "Then I need to float lower. This is overwhelming." Dave fast-forwarded the video to another segment. This time it showed the recruits during a survival exercise. They were given minimal supplies and required to survive in the wilderness for 3 days. The footage showed them building shelters, finding water, and hunting local animals for food. At one point, Hana was bitten by something that looked like a cross between a snake and a lizard. The creature's fangs sank deep into her forearm. She cursed loudly, pulled the creature off, and applied basic first aid from her kit. Then she continued with her task, tracking a large herbivore through the forest. "What was that creature?" Quaros asked, his voice barely a whisper. Day checked the data. "A red striker. Common on Australia secundus. The venom causes localized pain and swelling. We teach recruits to identify them in the first week. That venom would liquefy cretal organs in 40 seconds. Click 17 said flatly, "I watched one of your recruits get injected with a Class 8 toxin, and she barely slowed down." Day realized the situation was worse than he thought. "Gentlemen, I think we need to contact your superiors. There seems to be a significant gap in our mutual understanding of biological tolerances." Quaros turned to his fellow inspectors. "I'm calling for an emergency session of the Galactic Council. This changes everything we thought we knew about humanity." "Agreed," Thessic said, his color still that strange purple-gray. "Captain Day, I mean no offense, but your species terrifies me." Day felt sad about that. Humans had joined the Galactic Council 20 years ago, hoping to find friendship among the stars. They had been welcomed warmly, or so he thought. Now it seemed that welcome might have been based on a fundamental misunderstanding. "We're not trying to be frightening," Day said quietly. "We're just trying to survive like everyone else." "Captain," Quaros said, his crystalline form still pulsing with stress patterns, "you're not surviving. You're thriving in conditions that would be classified as apocalyptic extinction events for 90% of known sapient species. That's not normal. That's not natural." He paused, then added, "That's terrifying." The inspection ended shortly after. The aliens left quickly, clearly disturbed by what they had learned. Day stood alone in the briefing room, staring at the paused video of Hana jumping across that gap, her face showing nothing but determination and joy. He wondered what would happen next. Nothing good, probably. The galaxy had just learned that humans were far stranger and more dangerous than anyone had imagined. That kind of knowledge changed things. It changed everything. Day touched a button and the video continued playing. The recruits completed their course, celebrating their success. They had no idea that their simple training exercise had just caused a galactic crisis. Outside the windows, stars shined in the darkness of space, cold and distant. Day hoped that distance wouldn't grow larger now. Humans had finally found others among the stars. It would be tragic to lose that connection because of fear. But he understood the fear. If the situations were reversed, if he learned another species trained on planets that would kill humans instantly, he would be frightened too. The question was, what would the galaxy do with its fear? Ambassador Una received the emergency summons while she was having morning coffee in her quarters on Unity Station. The message was marked urgent, requiring her immediate presence at the council chambers. She had been Earth's representative to the Galactic Council for 5 years and had never seen an emergency session called before. She arrived at the council building to find chaos. Hundreds of aliens crowded the entrance, many holding signs and shouting in their various languages. The translator devices struggled to keep up with the noise. Una caught fragments as she pushed through the crowd. "Humans are too dangerous. Death world predators among us. They've been hiding their true nature." Security guards, a mix of different species, formed a protective corridor for Una to enter the building. Inside, the situation was hardly better. The Grand Council chamber, usually a place of calm deliberation, buzzed with anxious energy. Representatives from 200 species filled the seats, all talking at once. Una took her place at the human delegation's desk. Beside her sat Minho, her military advisor, and Isul, the cultural liaison. Both looked worried. "What happened?" Una whispered to them. Minho pulled up a data pad. The inspection team at the Resilience sent their report directly to the full council. It went public within an hour. Now every species knows that humans train on death worlds. But that's not secret information, Yuna said, confused. Our training protocols are documented. Isil shook her head. They're documented, but no one read them carefully. Or they didn't understand what the classifications meant. Ambassador. Most species don't even have words for the environments we train in. They literally cannot imagine survival in those conditions. The council president, an elderly Veloxian named Orcs, struck the resonance crystal 3 times. The sound echoed through the chamber, demanding silence. Slowly, the noise died down. This emergency session is now in order, Orcs announced. We are here to discuss the recent revelations about human military training protocols and their implications for galactic security. A Creatal representative immediately stood up. Mr. President, the evidence is clear. Humans have been training super soldiers on death worlds. This is a violation of the Treaty of Humane Military Standards. Yuna stood as well. Mr. President, may I respond? Ambassador Yuna has the floor. Yuna took a deep breath. The Treaty of Humane Military Standards requires that soldiers not be subjected to cruel or unusual conditions during training. For humans, training on Class 12 worlds is neither cruel nor unusual. It's standard. Angry muttering spread through the chamber. A Nethmir delegate floated up from his seat. How can you claim that death worlds are standard? Because, Yuna said calmly, Earth itself is classified as a Class 11 death world. Humans evolved there. We don't consider these environments particularly dangerous because we live in them every day. The chamber exploded with noise. Representatives shouted in disbelief. Many were calling her a liar. Others demanded proof. The resonance crystal rang out multiple times before order was restored. Morix's crystalline form showed deep stress patterns. Ambassador Yuna, that's a serious claim. Earth is the human homeworld. It cannot be a death world. No sapient species evolves on death worlds. And yet we did, Yuna replied. She pulled up Earth's environmental data on the main display. These are the standard conditions on Earth. Gravity, 1.0 galactic standard, which is considered high. Atmospheric oxygen, 21%, which is near the ignition threshold for several species. Temperature range -40 to +50 Celsius depending on location and season. Native life includes millions of species of bacteria, viruses, and multicellular organisms, many hostile. Predators include creatures weighing several tons. She paused. And 8 billion humans live there without any environmental protection. A small Pixith delegate, barely a meter tall, stood on her chair to be seen. This must be an error in classification. The Galactic Survey Corps must have made a mistake when they first catalogued Earth. The Survey Corps has been invited to re-evaluate Earth 17 times, Minho said, standing beside Yuna. Each time they confirm the classification, Earth is a Class 11 death world by every objective measure. Then how are you alive? Someone shouted from the back. Evolution, Yuna said simply. Our ancestors survived because the weak ones died. Generation after generation, only the strongest, most adaptable humans lived long enough to have children. This continued for millions of years. Earth didn't make us strong to be kind to us. It made us strong because anything weaker died. The chamber fell silent. It was a terrible silence, heavy with fear and realization. Finally, an older Veloxian delegate named Nixara spoke up. Her voice was thoughtful rather than afraid. Ambassador Yuna, I think I speak for many here when I say this is difficult for us to understand. In our experience, death worlds are places of horror. They're where we send criminals as punishment. They're what we use in scary stories to frighten children. The idea that someone lives on such a world, that someone evolved there naturally, is challenging our basic understanding of life. Yuna nodded. I understand that. But I want to be clear about something. Humans didn't choose to be this way. We didn't decide to be tough or resilient or hard to kill. We just are. And we've spent our entire history dealing with that reality. But what are your intentions? Demanded a Cretal military commander. You have an entire species of soldiers who can survive anywhere, who train in environments that would kill our best warriors. What are you planning to do with that power? Nothing, Yuna said firmly. We joined the Galactic Council seeking peace, trade, and friendship. We've never threatened anyone. We've never used our biology as a weapon. We're trying to be good neighbors. But you could threaten us, the commander pressed, at any time. You could send your soldiers to any of our worlds and we couldn't stop you. We'd die just trying to reach the environments where you're comfortable. Minho stepped forward. With respect, Commander, humans could also say we're vulnerable. Our population is concentrated on one world. Our colonies are few and small. Any species with advanced weapons could destroy us easily. We trust that you won't do that, because we believe the Council stands for peace. We're asking for the same trust in return. The debate continued for hours. Una listened as species after species expressed their fears, their concerns, their disbelief. Some wanted humanity expelled from the Council. Others wanted trade restrictions. A few suggested quarantine, keeping humans confined to their own space. But there were also voices of reason. Nixara argued passionately for acceptance and understanding. A Nethmir philosopher pointed out that judging beings by their biology rather than their actions was the definition of prejudice. A young Cretal scientist suggested that humanity's unique nature could be an opportunity for learning rather than a threat. As the day wore on, Una began to feel tired and frustrated. She had prepared for many scenarios as Earth's ambassador, but not this. She hadn't expected to have to defend humanity's right to exist. Finally, Orcs called for a vote. The Council must decide on a course of action. I propose we send a scientific expedition to Earth to verify these claims and assess the actual conditions of the human homeworld. All in favor? The vote was unanimous, though Una noted it was for different reasons. Some genuinely wanted to understand. Others clearly hoped the investigation would prove humans were lying, that Earth couldn't possibly be as bad as described. The expedition will depart within the week, Morix announced. Ambassador Una, will humanity grant permission for this investigation? Una stood tall. Yes, Mr. President, we welcome the investigation. We have nothing to hide. Come to Earth, see our home, say our people. Judge us by what you observe, not by your fears. As the session ended, delegates filed out slowly, many still arguing among themselves. Una sat down heavily, exhausted. Isol put a hand on her shoulder. You did well, did I? Una asked. They're afraid of us now. Everything's changed. Maybe that's not entirely bad, Minho said quietly. Maybe it's time the galaxy knew what humans really are. We can't build honest relationships on misunderstandings. Una looked out the window at the stars beyond Unity Station. Somewhere out there was Earth, her home, a beautiful blue world that the galaxy considered a nightmare. She loved that planet, loved its mountains and oceans, its storms and seasons. It had made humanity what they were, stubborn, resilient, and endlessly hopeful even in the face of impossible odds. The galaxy was about to learn what that meant. Una just hoped they would understand that being strong didn't mean being cruel, that surviving harsh conditions didn't mean seeking to harm others. Time would tell. The expedition would arrive at Earth soon, and everything would change again. For better or worse, the truth was coming out. There was no going back now. The expedition ship arrived at Earth 3 weeks after the Council meeting. It was a massive vessel, equipped with enough safety equipment to explore the most hostile environments in known space. The crew included 20 scientists from 15 different species, all experts in biology, environmental science, or military strategy. Leading the expedition were 2 figures, Prilax, a Veloxian xenobiologist with 50 years of experience studying alien life, and Commander Thune, a Nethmir military strategist known for his careful analysis. Both had volunteered for this mission despite their private fears. They needed to know the truth about humans. Jin was waiting for them at the orbital station above Earth. He was a cheerful human scientist in his 30s, with dark hair and an easy smile. He floated through the docking tube to greet them, seemingly unconcerned about the significance of this meeting. Welcome to Earth, Jin said warmly. I'm Jin, and I'll be your guide during your stay. We've prepared everything according to your requirements. Prilax studied the human through his environmental suit's sensors. Jin wore only simple clothing, no protective gear at all despite being in a space station. Dr. Jin, shouldn't you be wearing safety equipment? Jin looked confused. This is a standard pressurized station. Why would I need safety equipment? The oxygen concentration here is 22%, Thune pointed out. That's extremely high. Oh, Jin nodded. I guess we prefer it a bit oxygen-rich. Don't worry, though. We've prepared special areas with lower concentrations for your comfort. The expedition members exchanged glances through their suits. They were already in protective gear and they hadn't even reached the planet yet. Jin led them to a transport shuttle that would take them down to the surface. He explained the plan. We'll start with Seoul, one of our major cities. It's very safe and comfortable. Then if you're interested, we can visit some natural areas. We thought you might want to see a variety of environments. Seoul is considered safe? Prilax asked carefully. Very safe. Millions of people live there. Crime is low, infrastructure is excellent, and the weather is nice this time of year. The shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere. The expedition members watched through reinforced windows, their sensors recording everything. The planet below was mostly blue, covered in vast oceans. Clouds swirled in complex patterns. On the land masses, they could see green areas covered in vegetation and gray areas where human cities clustered. It's beautiful, admitted a young Cretal scientist named Click 9. It is, Jin agreed, smiling. We're very lucky to call it home. The shuttle landed in Seoul and the real shock began. The expedition members had prepared extensive safety protocols. They wore full environmental suits. They brought backup life support systems. They carried emergency medical equipment. They had planned for every contingency. And then they saw the city. Humans were everywhere, not hundreds or thousands, but millions. They walked on the streets without any protection. They sat at outdoor cafes eating and drinking. Children played in parks, running and laughing. Elderly humans sat on benches feeding birds. No one wore environmental suits. No one seemed to notice they were living in conditions that should have killed them. The expedition stayed inside their sealed transport vehicle. Their sensors painted a horrifying picture. The temperature outside was 30 degrees Celsius. The humidity was 60%. The atmospheric pressure was high. Radiation from the local star beat down constantly. Background radiation from the planet itself registered on their instruments. The air was filled with microscopic organisms, pollen, dust, and chemical compounds from the city's industry. This is impossible, Prilax whispered. How are they not dead? Jin, sitting in the front of the vehicle without any protective gear, turned around. Is everything okay? You all seem very quiet. Dr. Jin, Thune said slowly, you're breathing this air voluntarily. Well, yes, it's air. It would kill me in 17 minutes. Jin's smile faded. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be insensitive. I know Earth is different, but to us this is just normal. They drove through the city. The expedition members took detailed notes, recorded thousands of hours of video, and ran constant analyses. Every measurement confirmed what they were seeing. This planet was lethal to almost all known life forms, and humans were simply living their daily lives on it. At one point they passed a school. Through the windows they could see young humans sitting at desks learning. The building had windows open to let in fresh air. Those are children, Click 9 said in disbelief. You're exposing your young to these conditions. They're in school, Jin said, confused. It's a perfectly normal school day. They're juveniles in a Class 11 death world environment with no protection. Jin sighed. I'm starting to understand why you're all so worried. But please believe me, those children are completely safe. That school has been there for 50 years. Thousands of students have graduated from it. They're fine. After several hours in Seoul, Jin suggested they visit a nature preserve. I think it might help you understand Earth better if you see it outside the cities. We have a beautiful national park in Gangwon Province. It's only an hour away. The expedition members agreed, though with clear reluctance. If the city was this bad, what would the wilderness be like? The national park was worse. Much worse. Their vehicle stopped at a trailhead. Through the windows they could see a dense forest. Trees grew everywhere, their roots breaking through the ground. Undergrowth filled the spaces between trees. The sensors showed the area was teeming with life. Insects, small animals, birds, and larger creatures all existed in a complex ecosystem. Jin stepped out of the vehicle. He was wearing light hiking clothes, boots, and carrying a small backpack. Nothing more, please, Dr. Jin, don't go out there. Prilex called through the vehicle's communication system. I'll be fine, Jin called back. I'm just going to walk a bit. You can watch from inside. And he did. Jin walked calmly into the forest, breathing the air, touching trees with his bare hands. Within seconds, insects swarmed around him. He waved them away casually. A small cut on his hand from a sharp branch bled slightly, and he simply wiped it on his pants. The expedition members watched in horror. Their sensors identified the insects as carrying multiple pathogens. The soil Jin was walking on contained bacteria that would cause system failure in most council species. The plants released chemicals that were toxic. The temperature was fluctuating wildly as clouds passed over the sun. Then a woman jogged past. She was younger than Jin, wearing even less clothing and running voluntarily in this environment. Her name tag identified her as Sumi. She waved at Jin as she passed, earbuds in her ears, listening to music. She was exercising, pushing her body harder in conditions that registered as a biological hazard. "This is their idea of recreation," Thune said quietly. "They come here to relax." The expedition spent 3 more days on Earth visiting different environments. They saw the ocean, where humans swam among creatures that could kill with poison or simply by crushing. They saw mountains where humans climbed for sport despite thin air and freezing temperatures. They saw deserts where humans lived in temperatures that would boil Veloxian fluid matrices. Everywhere they went, the story was the same. Humans simply lived their lives, unconcerned about dangers that would be instantly fatal to almost any other sapient species. On the last day, Jin took them to a museum of natural history. It displayed Earth's evolutionary history, showing the creatures that came before humans. The expedition members saw dinosaurs that weighed hundreds of tons. They saw ice ages that covered continents. They saw mass extinctions that wiped out most life on the planet. "Earth has tried to kill everything living on it at least 5 times, Jin explained. "Asteroid impacts, volcanic eruptions, climate shifts, ice ages. And yet life survived. It adapted. It evolved. Humans are the result of 4 billion years of survival. We're not special or superior. We're just the latest version of life that refused to give up." Prilax's crystalline form had been showing stress patterns the entire trip. Now it dimmed further. "Dr. Jin, I need to tell you something. Before coming here, I thought humans were lying about their origins. I thought you must have genetically modified yourselves or developed your resilience through technology. I couldn't accept that any species evolved naturally in these conditions. And now?" Jin asked. "Now I understand. You're not lying. This is really your home? You really evolved here." He paused. "And that terrifies me more than any lie could." Commander Thune floated closer. "I've analyzed the military implications. If Earth is your basic training environment and your soldiers train on Class 12 worlds, then your special forces must operate in conditions we can't even classify. Your entire species is effectively an army that can deploy anywhere." "We're not an army," Jin said gently. "We're just people. Yes, we're tough. Yes, we can survive in harsh places. But that doesn't make us violent or cruel. If anything, living on a world that constantly tries to kill you teaches you to value life more, not less." The expedition returned to space the next day. As their ship pulled away from Earth, the scientists compiled their findings. The report would be thousands of pages long, filled with data, analysis, and observations. But the conclusion was simple. Humans were telling the truth. Earth was a death world. The Galactic Council chamber was more crowded than it had ever been. Every species had sent representatives, and many had sent their leaders as well. The expedition's report had been released the day before, and the entire galaxy had spent the night reading it. Now they gathered to decide what it meant and what to do about it. Ambassador Yuna sat at the human delegation's desk, waiting. She could feel the weight of 200 species staring at her. Some looked afraid. Others looked angry. A few looked curious. Most looked deeply uncertain. President Morix called the session to order. "We have all read the expedition's report. The findings are clear and verified by multiple independent sensors. Earth is indeed a Class 11 death world. Humans evolved there naturally. The question before us now is what this means for the Council and for galactic security." Prilax stood to present the detailed findings. His crystalline form still showed stress patterns from his time on Earth. "I have spent 50 years studying alien biology. I have visited 400 planets. I thought I understood the limits of life. I was wrong." He pulled up images of Earth on the main display. Humans evolved in conditions that should have prevented the development of intelligence. They faced predators that could kill them easily. They endured temperature extremes that should have forced specialization. They survived disease, famine, natural disasters, and competition with other human groups. By all logic, they should have either died out or remained simple creatures. But they didn't, he continued. Instead, they developed bigger brains. They created tools, language, art, and eventually civilization. They conquered their planet not by becoming bigger or stronger, but by becoming smarter and more cooperative, and they never lost their physical resilience. They kept both the strength and the intelligence. Commander Thune stood next. The military implications are severe. I've analyzed human capabilities based on what we observed. A standard human civilian with no military training can survive in environments that would kill our soldiers in minutes. They can operate in gravity ranges from 0.4 to 2.0 times galactic standard. They can tolerate temperature ranges of over 90 degrees. They're resistant to most common toxins and diseases. They heal rapidly from injuries that would be fatal to other species. He paused, letting that sink in. Now consider their military. Human soldiers train on worlds even harsher than Earth. Their special forces train in conditions we can't even measure. If humans decided to invade any council world, we couldn't stop them. They could walk through environments we can't enter. They could survive on planets we consider uninhabitable. They could fight in conditions that would kill our armies before battle even began. The chamber erupted in frightened conversation. President Morix had to strike the resonance crystal multiple times to restore order. Ambassador Yuna, Morix said, you must address the council's concerns. Yuna stood slowly. She had known this moment was coming. I understand your fears, I do. If I learned another species had these capabilities, I would be concerned too. But I want to make something absolutely clear. Humans are not your enemies. We've never attacked a council member. We've never threatened anyone. We followed every treaty and law. We joined the council seeking peace. But you could attack us, shouted a delegate from the back. At any time. Yes, Yuna admitted. We could. Just like species with powerful space fleets could destroy Earth. Just like species with biological weapons could create plagues. Just like species with advanced technology could hack our systems. Every species in this council has the capability to harm others. The question isn't capability. It's intent. A faction led by a Cretal senator began calling for human expulsion. They argued that Death World species were incompatible with civilized society. They claimed humans should be quarantined to prevent them from contaminating the galaxy. They demanded trade restrictions and travel bans. Another group, pragmatic politicians and military leaders, suggested a different approach. If humans were so capable, why not use that capability? They proposed hiring human mercenaries, creating human peacekeeping forces, employing humans for dangerous rescue missions. Humans could be useful, this faction argued, as long as they were properly controlled. A third group, smaller but growing, advocated for complete isolation. They wanted to draw a border around human space and forbid any contact. Let humans stay in their corner of the galaxy, and let everyone else stay in theirs. Ambassador Yuna listened to proposal after proposal, each one treating humans as problems to be solved rather than people to be understood. Finally, she requested permission to speak again. I hear what you're saying, she began. You want to expel us or hire us or quarantine us. You want to control us or avoid us. But you're not asking the most important question. What do humans want? What do you mean? Morix asked. You've spent this entire session talking about what to do about humans. You've analyzed our capabilities and discussed our potential threats, but no one has asked what humans actually want from the galaxy. She looked around the chamber. I'll tell you. We want the same things everyone wants. We want safety for our families. We want opportunities for our children. We want to explore and learn. We want friends. We want to be part of something larger than ourselves. That's what all species want, Prelec said quietly from his seat. Exactly, Yuna said. Yes, we're different. Yes, we come from a harsh world. Yes, we're physically resilient. But we're still people. We laugh, we cry, we hope, we fear. We create art and music. We tell stories. We fall in love. We're not monsters. We're not weapons. We're just humans trying to find our place in the galaxy. A young Veloxian named Nixara stood up. Ambassador Yuna is right. We're letting fear control us. Has humanity done anything to deserve this treatment? Have they attacked anyone? Threatened anyone? Broken any laws? No, admitted Commander Thune. In 20 years as council members, humans have been model citizens. Then why are we punishing them for their biology? Nixara demanded. That's the definition of prejudice. We're judging them not by their actions, but by what they could potentially do. If we start down this path, where does it end? Do we expel every species that makes us uncomfortable? The debate raged for hours. Delegates argued passionately on all sides. Some were swayed by Nixara's words. Others remained convinced that humans were too dangerous to trust. The council was deeply divided. Finally, Yuna made one more statement. I want to address something Commander Thune said about Earth's training environments. He's right that humans can survive in harsh conditions. But he's missing the bigger picture. Yes, we train on difficult worlds, but we do it to protect ourselves and others. We make ourselves tough not because we want to hurt people, but because we want to be strong enough to help. She pulled up images of human history on the display. Throughout our past, we've faced disasters, earthquakes, floods, fires, storms, and every time we've had to be the ones to save ourselves. We couldn't wait for rescue from easier environments. We had to dig through rubble with our bare hands. We had to swim through toxic waters. We had to walk through radiation zones. We learned to be tough because we had no choice. More images appeared, but look what else we learned. We learned to run toward danger, not away from it. We learned to rescue the weak instead of abandoning them. We learned that strength means protecting others, not dominating them. Earth made us hard, but it also made us kind. Because when you know how harsh the universe can be, you don't want to add more cruelty to it. You want to reduce it. The chamber fell silent. Yuna's words hung in the air like a challenge and a promise. I'll make you an offer, Yuna said. You're afraid of human strength. I understand. So let us prove our intentions. The next time there's a disaster, a situation too dangerous for others to handle, send humans. Let us show you what we do with our capabilities. Judge us by our actions, not your fears. President Morix considered this. The council will take your offer into account. For now, we will postpone any decisions about humanity's status. But understand this, Ambassador. The galaxy is watching you now. Everyone knows what humans are capable of. That changes everything. As the session ended and delegates filed out, Yuna remained seated. Isil put a hand on her shoulder. That was a good speech. Was it enough? Yuna asked. I don't know. But it was honest. That counts for something. Minho leaned back in his chair. We're at a turning point. The galaxy knows the truth now. They know we're tougher than anyone thought. What happens next depends on whether they see that as a threat or an opportunity, or whether we get a chance to prove ourselves, Yuna added. She looked out at the stars beyond the council chambers. Somewhere out there, humanity waited to see what the galaxy would decide about their future. Would they be accepted or rejected? Welcomed or feared? Yuna didn't know. But she knew one thing. Humans had survived 4 billion years of Earth trying to kill them. They would survive this too, whatever came next. The emergency broadcast reached every ship, every station, every world in the Galactic Council within minutes. The message was simple and terrifying. Velnash Prime was dying. An asteroid storm, unprecedented in scale and composition, was tearing through the Veloxian home system. The storms happened sometimes, but this one was different. The asteroids contained heavy radioactive elements, materials that should not exist in that concentration naturally. Scientists suspected a distant supernova had created the materials and sent them hurtling through space. Now they were about to collide with Velnash Prime. 3 billion Veloxians lived on the planet. The Galactic Defense Fleet scrambled to intercept the storm, destroying what asteroids they could. But there were too many moving too fast. Hundreds would get through. When they impacted, they would create radioactive dead zones on the planet's surface. The worst part was the people trapped in those impact zones. 6 million Veloxians couldn't evacuate in time. The areas would become Class 9 radiation zones within hours. Any Veloxian entering those zones would die within minutes. Their crystalline bodies couldn't handle that level of radiation. Captain Day watched the emergency broadcast from the Resilience. His crew stood around him, all thinking the same thing. Those people were going to die. Not because they couldn't be reached, but because no one could survive in those radiation zones long enough to rescue them. No Veloxian could survive there. But humans could, sir, said Lieutenant Hana, the same young woman who had been bitten by the Red Striker during training. We should help, I know, Day said quietly, but we need permission. And I'm not sure they'll accept it. He was right to be cautious. The Galactic Council was still debating what to do about humanity. Many species feared humans. Offering help now might be seen as an aggressive move, an attempt to prove superiority. It could make things worse. But 6 million people were going to die. Day opened a communication channel to Ambassador Yuna on Unity Station. Ambassador, you're seeing this? Yes. Yuna's face appeared on the screen, tight with stress. I'm trying to reach the Veloxian government now. But Day, they might refuse. They might prefer to let their people die rather than accept human help. Then we'll respect that decision, Day said. But we have to offer. We have to try, Una nodded. I'll make the call. The Veloxian government initially said no. Their prime minister, a elderly Veloxian named Trixol, made it clear that humans were not welcome on Velnash Prime. Better to die than to owe humans a debt, he suggested. Better to maintain pride than accept help from Deathworlders. But as the death toll began to climb, as reports came in of children trapped in collapsed buildings, of hospitals cut off from supplies, of entire communities sealed in radiation zones, the government's position softened. The public was watching. Families of the trapped were demanding action, any action. Trixol made a desperate call to the human embassy. If you can help, help. But know that we don't trust you. We'll be watching everything you do. Understood, Una said. We'll send our best. The Resilience arrived at Velnash Prime 16 hours after the first impacts. Captain Day had assembled a team of 500 volunteers. No one was ordered to go. Everyone volunteered. They all knew the risks. Radiation, unstable structures, hostile environment, and the possibility that this rescue would turn into a political disaster. Lieutenant Hanna led the first team down to the surface. They wore basic protective gear, enough to shield them from the worst of the radiation, but not much more. Heavy suits would slow them down, and speed was essential. The scene on the ground was worse than the report suggested. The asteroid impacts had devastated 3 major cities. Buildings were collapsed. Fires burned everywhere, and the radiation levels were rising steadily as the radioactive materials in the asteroids began to decay. Hanna's team moved through the wreckage. They could hear Veloxians calling for help, their voices weak and fading. The radiation was killing them slowly and their own people couldn't reach them. First survivors located, Hanna reported. A shelter with 43 Veloxians trapped inside. They're alive, but radiation exposure is critical. The team moved in. They dug through rubble, cleared pathways, and carefully carried the Veloxians out one by one. The crystalline beings were surprisingly heavy, and their bodies were beginning to crack from radiation damage. Some were already unconscious. Hanna carried a young Veloxian, maybe the equivalent of a human teenager, through the ruins. The Veloxian's form was flickering weakly. Stay with me, Hanna said, though she didn't know if the translator would work. You're going to be okay. The rescue continued for hours. Team after team of humans entered the radiation zones, bringing out survivors. They worked without rest, driven by the same stubborn determination that had helped their ancestors survive Earth's harshest conditions. One team, led by a man named Quan, found a hospital that had lost power. Inside were 200 patients who couldn't be moved easily. The radiation was lethal to Veloxians, but the patients would die without medical care. We need to restore power, Quan said. Can we do that? His engineer, a woman named Bora, studied the building. The reactor is damaged but repairable. I can fix it, but I'll need to work inside the reactor chamber. The radiation there is off the charts. How long would you be exposed? 20 minutes. Maybe 30. That would be a lethal dose for most species. For humans, it was dangerous but survivable with treatment. Do it, Quan said. We'll get you medical attention as soon as you're done. Bora entered the reactor chamber and began repairs. Her radiation badge climbed steadily into the red zone, far past what any Veloxian could survive. She worked methodically, her hands steady despite knowing what this exposure would do to her body. After 26 minutes, the reactor hummed back to life. Hospital power was restored. 200 patients were saved. Bora collapsed as soon as she exited the chamber. Her team rushed her to the human medical ship, where doctors began treatment for severe radiation exposure. She would survive, they said, but it would take months of recovery. The rescue operation continued for 18 hours. 500 humans worked without stopping, entering zones that no other species could survive. They dug through radioactive rubble. They carried survivors through toxic environments. They repaired infrastructure, cleared paths, and provided emergency medical care. The galaxy watched. Every news service in Council space broadcast the rescue. People saw humans doing the impossible, risking their lives to save people who had feared them just days before. 3 humans died during the rescue. A structural collapse killed 2 members of a rescue team. Another volunteer, a young man named Minjae, was caught in a secondary explosion. They died doing what humans had always done, running toward danger to help others. By the time the radiation zones were stable enough for Veloxian rescue teams to enter, the humans had saved over 40,000 lives. The trapped survivors had been evacuated. The injured had received care. The dead had been recovered with dignity. Captain Day stood in the command center of the Resilience, exhausted. His uniform was covered in dust and radiation burns. Lieutenant Hannah stood beside him, her arm in a sling from a minor injury. Around them, the crew celebrated quietly. They had done it. They had proven what humans could do. A transmission came through from Velnash Prime. It was Prime Minister Trixall, the same Veloxian who had initially refused human help. His crystalline form showed patterns that human translators identified as shame and gratitude. "Captain Day," Trixall said quietly, "I was wrong about humans. We all were. You didn't have to help us. We gave you every reason not to. But you came anyway. You saved our people. Some of you died saving our people." He paused. "I owe you an apology. More than that, I owe you my respect. You've shown us what strength truly means. It's not about dominating others. It's about protecting them." Day bowed slightly. "We were honored to help, Prime Minister. We hope this is the beginning of better understanding between our peoples." Over the following days, the political situation in the Council transformed. The species that had called for human expulsion now called for human partnership. The delegates who had feared humans now praised them. Public opinion shifted dramatically as people saw what humans did with their power. The Galactic Council convened again. This time, the debate was different. Instead of discussing whether humans were too dangerous to trust, they discussed how to integrate human capabilities into Council operations. President Morix proposed a new classification: Vanguard species. Humans would be authorized to operate in extreme environments where other species couldn't survive. They would be first responders in disasters, rescue specialists in impossible situations, and peacekeepers in hostile zones. Ambassador Yuna listened to the proposal carefully. When it came time to vote, she stood to address the Council one last time. "We accept this designation with one condition. Human rescue and response teams will be available to all Council members freely. We won't charge for our help. We won't use it as leverage. When you need us, we'll come. That's our promise." The vote was unanimous. For the first time since the truth about humanity was revealed, the Council was united. Not in fear, but in partnership. Months later, on the anniversary of the rescue, a memorial was built on Velnash Prime. It honored all those who died in the asteroid strike.